Here in Matthew chapter 2, notice what it says down here in verse 15. And was there until the death of Herod, that it might be fulfilled, which was spoken of the Lord by the prophet, saying, Out of Egypt have I called my son. What prophet is that? It's the prophet Hosea. In Hosea 11:1. When Israel was a child, then I loved him, and called my son out of Egypt. Now, if you're Jewish and you're tempted to say, no, that's talking about we, the children of Israel. Yes, it is. Don't get yourself proud and haughty, though, by thinking that's all it's talking about. Because you, being a Jew, have the unique privilege of being the race or the people that the Christ child would come out of. And Israel, the people, are God's children. And you could maybe say God's son, but you were a picture of the Christ. So rather than being proud, that is something to be very humbled by. And that's what it's speaking of in Matthew. Then there's another here. In verse 18, In Ramah was there a voice heard, lamentation and weeping, and great mourning, Rachel weeping for her children, and would not be comforted, because they are not. That is from Jeremiah. We'll go to that passage now. That's Jeremiah 31, verse 5. Or maybe 15. 15. Thus saith the Lord, a voice was heard in Ramah, lamentation and bitter weeping. Rahel weeping for her children, refused to be comforted for her children, because they were not. Do you know the first time Bethlehem is mentioned in the Bible is the place of Rachel's burial? Rachel, of course, the wife of Jacob, who later became known as Israel. Interesting, though, Rachel wasn't, she was not the mother of Judah. But it wasn't the son of Judah, or, all right, Christ came from the tribe of Judah. I'm sure there were some in Bethlehem that were from Judah that were slain, but the majority of those were the children of Rachel and Leah. There's that, anyway, there's what that's referring to. Matthew 2, verse 18 is referring to Jeremiah 31:15. And then finally, the other prophecy here mentioned in Matthew chapter 2, he shall be called a Nazarene, verse 23. And he came and dwelt in the city called Nazareth, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken by the prophets, he shall be called a Nazarene. And it's interesting, too, because Joseph and Mary came from Nazareth to go to Bethlehem, remained there while the child was born, and then they were sent into Egypt. Isn't that an interesting picture, too? The God of the universe is a little child walking amongst the most gaudy, that is, display of man's worldly religion, but in ruins, basically, in Egypt. The pyramids, the Sphinx, all those things. A little child, the God-man, walking amongst man-made images of earthly religion. But nonetheless, that's where he was, and God delivered him out of Egypt. And they went back, and they said, okay, we can't go into Judea because Herod's son is there. So they turned aside, and not by happenstance came back to Nazareth, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken by the prophets, he shall be called a Nazarene. In Judges 13. Judges 13:5. For lo, thou shalt conceive and bear a son, and no razor shall come on his head, for the child shall be a Nazarite unto God from the womb. He shall begin to deliver Israel out of the hand of the Philistines. Of course, that's speaking of Samson. And then the vow of the Nazarite is spoken of in the books of Moses. Why? Might I ask you, Jewish person who holds to the Torah, why was there such a vow as a Nazarite? It wasn't for Samson. It wasn't for him. It wasn't for Samuel. Samuel. Why? It was a picture of the Christ. He shall be called a Nazarene.